Well, hello. This is Rochelle, and thank you for joining me here on the Creative Retreat YouTube channel. Today I'm wrapping up Kinsman Redeemer, the devotional written by Erin Davis for Creative Retreat. I love these kits and I love wrapping them up by answering the reflection questions in my Archer and Olive craft dot journal. Craft just being the color. I love the paper quality of the Archer and Olive dot journals. They're just really super cool. And so what I do is I generally use the pattern paper pieces and the reflection questions and whatever I have left over from the Faithful Digitals to just kind of decorate this reflection at the end of my month of this devotional. So for this month, it was such a good devotional in that we realize that God has already purchased us. He has already made a plan. He has given us a way out, a redemption. And so we're so thankful for that. As we read in Ruth 4, he says, you are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon. Also Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon. I have bought her to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day. And so it really is important that we realize that God purchased at a very, very, very dear price our redemption in the same way. We have been rescued, we have been redeemed, we have been restored, and it is all a God doing, not an us doing. And for that, I'm just so thankful. So writing down the verses, using the kind of printed verse in the devotional. So if you have the verse address there, I just use that as my verse address, and then using a pen to write out the verses that aren't printed in the devotional. So I'm thankful for the word of the Lord and that I can memorize it in this way. It helps me to memorize His word because so often I read the word and then I kind of forget what I read. And something that has helped me is to visually see it. So I'm going to read it, then write it, then kind of reread it to make sure that I wrote it down right. And that helps me to remember the verse. And then once I've written them out and gone through the devotional to make sure that I've got the context of it, I take the reflection questions and I do the same with them. I kind of back them on some of the pieces of pattern paper from the Faithful Digitals and decorate them in that way. So they have a beautiful border mostly because of these stunning pattern paper pieces that we get as a part of the Faithful Digitals. The first question in this month's reflection questions is: consider the choices Boaz and the unnamed kinsman make in Ruth 4 verse 2 to 10. What do you learn about each man's priorities and why is this significant? And for me, it was so significant that protocol was followed. If we read even the story of Esther, protocol was followed, and so every requirement was met in the negotiation, in the discussion. Their priorities were also always family. So I love that protocol was met, and I love that their priority was family. And it's the same with Jesus. Jesus fulfilled every requirement needed to redeem us because he loved us and because he wanted to make us co-heirs with him in with God, to God, co-heirs with him to God. Then the second question is, how do you see the townswoman's hope in Ruth 4 verse 14 fulfilled in the subsequent generations? And we see that with Jesus being born from the bloodline of Ruth, that he really did fulfill every kind of requirement. And then the promise of her being blessed through this negotiation, through this redemption, was stated there. Question 3 is, within this small family circle, we see a preview of God's redemptive plan. How has He led you from sorrow to joy, poverty to security, and death to life? And then you can answer that question. Obviously, it's a personal one for each one of us. And then number 4 is journal a prayer praising the Lord for His providence and His redemptive grace. And I really just wrote, thank you, Lord, for sending Jesus Christ, our precious kinsman redeemer, to give us a beautiful life, a future. Thank you for that you rescued us and restored us. And there even I used some of the little word fetty that comes with the Faithful Digitals to just kind of complete my sentences there. And the pen I used, in case you're interested, is an indentrine blue Faber-Castell Pit Artist pen in an S nib. And I wanted to just repeat this little flower that I used also in my first video throughout this page. And then that pretty much is that for this devotional. Thank you so much for joining me this month. Thank you for keeping us all in your prayers, and we hope to see you again soon here on the channel. God bless. Bye-bye.